Hello everyone and welcome back to the next episode of the Road to FIDE Master series. This is the episode 92. After nearly half a year break, I went back to play in a chess tournament, and it was a completely new experience for me because I have played in the round robin tournament for the first time ever. And I would like to explain to you what is exactly the round robin tournament. So basically, usually you play in the Swiss kind of tournament, which means that you have the open formula, anyone can enter, and the amount of players ranges from like 20 people to maybe 200 or whatever. In the round robin tournament, you know that you are playing in a group of 10, meaning that you have 9 opponents against which you will play 9 rounds. On top of that, as you can see on the bottom left on the screen, the starting rank of players is known quite a long time before the tournament starts. In this one, it was known 2 weeks, sorry, not 2 years before the tournament, and 1 week before it, the pairings were official. So it gives you a chance to prepare very well for the tournament, and that's what I did. On the top left, you will see my, let's say, starting card, meaning that in which round, which player would I play and with which color. And with this 1 week beforehand, I went through my opponents' ratings lists, I went through their games, and I kind of knew exactly what will happen in the games, opening wise, and so on. And I kind of made the expected points list that you can see just a little bit on the right next to the opponent. So I will quickly go down the list. In the first round, as you can see, I was paired with the FIDE Master from Hungary, rated over 2300. He was a very solid guy, so I expected to have a tough game, but obviously with white pieces I wanted to fight for a full point in each game. Therefore the expected value, the expected points were from the half a point to a win. In general, in this type of tournaments, in order to achieve your goals, you have to play very good, because opponents are well prepared, well motivated, as same as you, and therefore it's very important to not lose games, and then if anything good can happen, obviously to win ones. That's why you will see no expected loss on this list. In the second round, I knew I am playing with black pieces, most probably against the Catalan, so I knew that to win such game would be a tough experience. Therefore I expected a draw. I mean, in the end you have to be also realistic, right? In the third round, once more white pieces, however against the best player in the field, so I kind of knew that yet again it might be a tough battle, so I expected to draw or to win. The fourth round apparently is the easiest one, should be at least, looking at the paper, right, at the starting list, because I got paired with white pieces against a guy that was only just above 2000 rating. So in here it was expected of me, I expected of me to win the game. And then in the round number 5, black pieces again, so no loss would be nice, but winning I knew it would be tough. And then white pieces against an international master. I wanted to play for a win again. Then a draw in the 7th round. To be honest, I prepared mostly for the rounds from 1 to 6 before tournament, because I didn't want to over push with the let's say preparation, opening preparation and whatnot. Therefore in the round 7 I just knew that I am playing a young FIDE master that is pretty solid, so a draw it is. And then in the round number 8, obviously white pieces playing for a win. And in the last one, before the opponent was the second lower rated, I wanted to play for a win even with having the black pieces. All in all, if I would score the best possible results out of the ones that I thought of, I would score 8 out of 9, because I would have, as you can tell, draws in number 2 and 7, and then all the wins otherwise. If I scored, let's say, the least expected amount of points, I would only win the forefront. Other than that, I would draw all the others. So in the end, if we meet in the middle, I expected with this kind of result to claim 6.5 points, which is exactly the amount of points I had to achieve in order to cross the 2300 rating mark to get my desired FIDE Master title about which I am recording this whole playlist, right? However, if I have scored just a half point more than that, I would be having my first ever international master norm achieved too. So even though I went into the tournament thinking that it would be nice to get my FIDE Master title, I wanted to fight for the international master norm because, like, why not? Only half a point difference, right? So those were the expectations before tournament. You may say that it's kind of optimistic of me to achieve no losses and to win so many games. And that's true. It was pretty optimistic, but you have to have this optimistic approach. You have to have the confidence going into the tournament. And in general, those type of tournaments are about not losing games overall, because it doesn't matter when you play like 9 rounds against well prepared opponents, you win like 4 games out of them, but you are playing such a risky chess that you lose 3 at the same time, right? Most likely you will see players that are drawing like 7 runs, 1 win, 1 loss, this type of thing, because the level of players is very, very equal, kind of, and it's hard to win. Therefore, it's good to not lose, if that makes sense to you. So yeah, this was my approach. As I've said before tournament, I had 1 week to prepare, and I did so for the first 6 rounds more or less. So yeah, I wanted to give my best. I went there prepared, and let's see what did happen in the first game. As I've told you, I played against FIDE Master from Hungary, and already on move 1 he surprised me a little bit. I expected mostly to fight against some kind of the Sicilian defense. E4, E5 also was in his database, but it was mostly used for a quick draw against a friend or something, because the games were rather short, rather drawn, and that was my assumption. However, after the game I learned that he plays E4, E5 too. There were just less games than in the other openings. However, I've worked on E4, E5 during last year mostly. Therefore, I knew that I will go for my beloved Rui Lopez, and I didn't know what to expect in this. So let's see. After Rui Lopez was chosen, we continued with the most common line: Rook E1, B5 here, and castle. And castling without pushing the pawn means one thing: the martial attack is prepared. When it comes to the anti-martial variations, there are mostly 2, I believe, either h3 or a4. I chose the latter, so a4 it is, after which b4 was played. And if you remember Road to FIDE Master series, and I unfortunately don't remember the exact episode, but I was met with this kind of setup around a year ago, maybe even exactly a year ago. And after d3 that I chose there was rook b8 move played. In here, my opponent chose d6 line, so initially I thought that he wants to repeat the game, but I, analyzed it, which I always recommend to do afterwards. So I knew what to play, because originally 1 year ago I messed up the move order. After d6, which is the main line, I also knew what to do. However, only to some extent, because I knew that knight b2 d2 is obvious developing move. Knight a5 hitting the bishop, I want to protect it. c5, c3, and now rook b8. Unfortunately, I only remembered what to do after knight c6, so rook b8 was not a surprise to me, but I did not refresh my memory, because as I've said, I was kind of surprised. So in here I had to kind of remember what I had in my notes, and funnily enough, those notes obviously I share with my students too. And just 1 month before this game was played, my student was playing this type of Rui Lopez, and he forgot the preparation, he forgot our notes. And then I talked to him like, coach did everything he could for you, to you, like why don't you remember the lines, And then here I am the coach, right? I am the one that prepared the notes, and I don't remember my own notes in here. Obviously, I was debating between the 2 moves, which are knight c4 and d4. In general, in those type of positions, I would like to play d4, but I was not so sure about the question, will my bishop, let's say, survive? Because after d4 exemplary variation, if bishop g4 happens, there is plenty of tension in the position, and it means that if I want to get rid of this tension, and for example, make the opponent take on f3, after this, and that, the problem is with my bishop, because since my knight retook with the knight on f3, it lost control over the b3 square, so b3 from my opponent is a possible move, and after bishop b1, and then c4, I might be in a big trouble, because those are fixed, and those are fixed too, so my bishop has nowhere to go to. If the bishop has nowhere to go to, my rook is also not so great, so I have plenty of problems. At this time though, I can take the pawn because it was not well protected, therefore instead of playing c4 immediately, queen c7 would be required, and then still I might face some difficulties with the bishop, because I'm not sure if I can play like this, because after takes c4, all of a sudden there is the majority of the pawns there, and yeah, I'm not sure what is worse, to allow this majority, or to have this terrible bishop after, for example, d5 c4, and there were some games in the database too. Yeah, those positions, even though they are objectively okay for white, I disliked from the distance, and I really struggled to find any continuation after this bishop g4 move. Only after the game I checked my notes. I know what to play now in here. However, as I've said, over the board it was too hard for me to spot, therefore I went for the knight c4 idea, which is okay in itself, but then when my opponent played knight c6, I correlated, okay, knight c6, let's play d4. However, in here it's not the objectively best scenario, objectively best variation to continue, and unfortunately in the Ruy Lopez games, if you play correctly, perfectly, you might get slight advantage. If you don't do that, opponent will most likely equalize. When I went for this knight c4 move, presumably it was better of me to try to maneuver the knights in a way that I would play knight e3 and then knight d2, knight c4, maybe something along those lines, to try to keep as much control over the light squares as possible with the bishop, with both knights, etc. And knight c4 does not connect that well with d4, even though over the board it seemed like a good try, because for example, if bishop g4 happens, now I can simply take on c5 or e5, doesn't really matter. Opponent cannot take back because I then exchange the queens and take the pawn, so he has to take on f3 first, and after this and that, now I felt okay with my bishop being there, because I was in no danger of, let's say, closing it forever. Let's imagine the variation where I play bishop g5, for example, developing move. After b3, I can simply just go back with the bishop, and d3 square will always be okay for me, because this knight blocks this pawn. So that's why I thought that it's an okay decision to play d4 now after my knight is here. However, I completely undervalued the variation that my opponent chose, but it was very counterintuitive to go for such line too, so I cannot blame myself that much. What did my opponent play then? He calculated, and he did that for a very long time. As you can tell on the timestamp in here, he fought for nearly 40 minutes to calculate, not even till the end, just some, let's say, extended the variation of takes, 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 takes. At this point, I felt like strategically it was a bad decision from my opponent, because he leaves himself this isolated weak pawn, but he then followed it up by further forcing calculations, variations, and equalization by playing b3, bishop b1, d5. So he kicked away my bishop from this diagonal, allowing himself to play d5, trying to exchange this weak pawn, and I couldn't really do anything about it. I had to take because my knight is attacked. If I just go away with my knight like anywhere, d4 happens, and funnily enough, I don't have such a triple fork because my queen is hanging, so after the exchange, obviously, black is fine. And if I don't do that, if I, for example, take first, after this and that, rook can just go anywhere, presumably to harass my knight, and I can't even take back the pawn at the end of the variation, because after this, this and that, I unfortunately suffer from the back rank weakness. So after all of that, I came to realization that I have to take, and if I have to take, I got rid of the biggest weakness in my opponent's camp. The pawn structure is really similar. On top of that, apparently, this pawn is a good one. Yes, it's quite far away from his friends, but at the same time, my pawn is a backward pawn, which means that, for example, in the scenario where I exchange in here, I might suffer a lot when it comes to the bishop f6 idea with some knight b4, knight c2 or whatnot. So after I did exchange on d5, I had to play bishop e4 in order to at least attempt to have some development going on, because my pieces were really passive. And after bishop e6, preparing this, as I've said, I had really no choice other than to take on d5, and after takes, we would achieve the opposite colored rook endgame with two rooks for each side. So very, very drawish endgame, as drawish as you can get basically. Therefore, already at this point after taking the knight, I offered a draw which was accepted because neither player could have done anything differently. So as you can tell, pretty short game to be honest, and not such a big fight, let's say, in the middle game. But it all came down to the fact that in the Ruy Lopez you have to be really precise. I was not. I kind of mixed up the variations, even though I played, let's say, humanly okay, and then unhumanly, let's say, my opponent calculated everything till the end. It took him nearly an hour to do so, but once he did that, once he played all the good moves and he took on d4 twice and then played b4 and so on, I mean, nothing I could have done. So even though it seems frustrating to draw first game uneventfully with white pieces, I mean, you have to, respect the result. What's most important, obviously, is that I did not lose, neither was I in the big danger. I just simply didn't use the fact that I had white pieces, but it happens, opponents are okay, so I can live with that. On top of that, funnily enough, after this draw, my opponent then won 3 games in a row, so it was a no joke of a player. So with this draw, that was even better in my eyes at that point. At this point, obviously, I couldn't have known that he was such a good guy, but yeah, a draw it is. Let's check game number 2, and we will do that in this video, guys, because unfortunately, the second game was even faster. Let's check it out. So, as you remember, in the expected table, let's say, of my points, in here I did not even think about winning the game. I only wanted to draw, and that was the expected result. Why was that? Well, it was because, as I've said, my opponent was supposed to play Catalan, and I got it right this time. So my preparation worked out. G3 it is, Catalan it is, and I simply couldn't bother to learn any system that would be allowing me to play for a win. I wanted to kill the dream, kill the Catalan, draw the game, go home, prepare for the next runs, because I dislike playing it as black too much. Therefore, I went for my, I cannot say beloved, but usual line when I want to kill the game in the Catalan, which is to immediately take on c4, immediately put pressure to the center, and then put it even more. So I took one pawn, I'm threatening to take the other one, and at the cost of that, I am kind of backwards when it comes to development, and my opponent can try to punish me in plenty of ways. He can try to pin me, he can try to open up this Catalan bishop, he can try to go into the endgame. That is very well known to be a little bit worse for black, and I would just have to, let's say, survive and fight. I believe there are also some few more options. My opponent chose knight e5 line. I kind of didn't know what he will play in here, because no one ever, even though he plays nearly exclusively Catalan, played this line against him. But I was prepared after knight e5, and I knew that I have to play bishop d7 to make this knight better, let's say, protected. Knight f3 is very important move to try to bring new pieces into the attack. I took on d4. This is still a well-known theory, and temporarily I am 2 pawns up, but obviously opponent will take my pawn on c4. And at that point, as I've said, I am trying to resolve all the issues in the center very early on at the price of underdevelopment. So now I try to, play it better in that sense. So I develop one piece, I develop the other piece. And then here I believe the critical try from white would be to play queen b3, trying to hit that pawn, obviously, since the bishop also is there. My opponent, however, played knight takes d7, which I believe even might be the main line and the most commonly chosen move. However, in here I was rather sure of myself that I have prepared a good variation, because in here I knew that I am supposed to take with the queen, which makes obviously a lot of sense, bringing the queen also into the game and protecting the pawn. But after knight e5, because I'm hit here and there, I will be exchanging the pieces. And what is the most important part of this variation, this preparation, is that I don't want to, I don't need to, I even can't play a move like this trying to keep my pawn advantage, because then some tricks may happen, and this is what my opponent was hoping for. I know that because we talked about the game. So the move in here is to play queen b5, hit the bishop immediately, protect the pawn, and hit that one too. And after queen d4, I knew that castling is the best move, and I kind of had the preparation furthermore, but I kind of forgot it. So whilst playing castle, I offered a draw, trying to, you know, say and sell the story that, listen man, you played your Catalan, I got rid of all the tensions in the center, I castled, I'm happy, I'm okay, symmetrical pawn structure, no worries at all. Yes, you have this bishop pair, this annoying bishop on g2 that may give you like plus 0.1 advantage in terms of the computer evaluation, but other than that, it's a dry position. Let's have a free evening, right? Afternoon. So looking at the clock, as you can tell, my opponent was still blitzing out all the moves. I had to spend like a minute or two here or there to make sure that I remember all the lines correctly. And yeah, my draw offer worked, because my opponent then admitted that this was exactly the moment in which his prep also has ended, and he was unsure whether to continue with a4, trying to put pressure to the queen, after which I presumably can take the pawn on e2, and then plenty of simplifications happen, and the game should indeed end in a drawing endgame, or should he protect the pawn first and then try to play a4. So as I've said, objectively speaking, he might try to push, he might try to win. That's why I offered a draw in this very moment, and it was accepted, and I was happy about it, you know. I hate Catalan, I hate facing it, so the fact that I was able to draw in this opening with black pieces within 15 minutes was great. Funnily enough, then after the game we chatted a little bit, so I can tell that I chatted with my opponent as much as I've played the game. So 15 minutes of the game, 15 minutes of chatting. We were debating about our opening choices. What would I play if he would have been played something else and stuff like that. So yeah, funny conversation, nice guy, draw it is. 2 draws in the first 2 games, kind of a slow start. Also, he asked me, are you here for vacation or are you here for fighting for an IM norm, right? Because we were playing in Hungary, in Balaton-Lele, which is a lovely place at the lake Balaton. So great weather, a great lake and stuff like that. And I said to him like 50-50, little bit of vacation, little bit of playing, but against you, my Catalan friend, I didn't want to play any longer. So that's the story for you guys. Those are the 2 first rounds of the round robin that I have started playing in Hungary. I hoped that even though the analysis were not that deep, neither that long, you enjoyed that, and that you will continue looking at my analysis from this tournament, because starting from the next day, I assure you, there were some fireworks going on. After this game also there was a double round, which you know what it means. It means that I had to play 2 rounds in one day. So having this afternoon off, obviously I went to swim in the lake, but then I started preparing for 2 games at the same time. So a lot of work, and let's see if that work, if this work, you know, came into fruition, let's say, in the next episode tomorrow. For this one, for this video, I thank you very much for watching. Leave a comment, leave a like, and we'll see each other to the analysis of the round number 3 shortly. Thank you and bye bye.